Here's a story draft for Earth was doomed until humanities lost ship reappeared best hf we stories. Earth was doomed until humanity's lost ship reappeared. The skies above Earth were burning. Alien fleets, vast and implacable, hung in low orbit. Their warforms descended in waves, firestorms lancing cities, bombardments flattening defenses. Humanity's orbital stations had already been torn apart, their fragments glowing like new constellations as they streaked through the atmosphere. The United Earth Defense Network knew the truth: Earth was lost. The invaders, the Karth, had never been stopped once they committed to extermination. They did not negotiate. They did not enslave. They annihilated. Admiral Reyes stood in the command bunker beneath New Geneva, knuckles white against the hollow table. Reports scrolled endlessly, cities ash, oceans boiling under kinetic strikes, fleets shattered. Humanity's last line of defense, the Atlas carrier group, was breaking apart in orbit. "Admiral," said a trembling comms officer, "signal detected. Deep space channel, old Terran frequency." Reyes frowned. "That band's been dead for centuries. Put it through." Static, a low hum. Then, impossibly, "This is the UES Nightborne, responding to Earth's distress beacon." The room went silent. Every officer stared at the comms feed in disbelief. The Nightborne, a legend, a ghost ship, humanity's first experimental dreadnought, launched 2 centuries ago and lost beyond the rim. No wreckage had ever been found. Some whispered it had slipped into dark space. Others claimed it was devoured by alien horrors. It was gone, until now. "Run it again," Reyes demanded. The officer replayed the message. Same voice, same impossible call sign. Then, the holotable lit up. A contact, massive, dropping out of FTL at the edge of the system. The UES Nightborne. It looked different. Its silhouette was familiar: spinal cannons, kilometer-long hull, but its surface was blackened, scarred, plated with alloys no Earth engineer had ever forged. It was bristling with unknown weaponry, its engines burning with a cold blue flame that made every scientist in the bunker whisper about impossible physics. The Karth fleet moved to intercept. Thousands of ships, a tide of annihilation. The Nightborne did not retreat. It sent one message across all channels: "Earth endures, we answer." Then it fired. The dreadnought's main gun ignited like a newborn star. A single beam tore through the Karth armada, punching a corridor through ships that had crushed entire civilizations. Exotic energy rippled outward, consuming hulls like paper. Alien warforms disintegrated before they even reached atmosphere. Every shot was surgical, every maneuver impossibly precise. It fought like a predator that had been learning for centuries, out beyond known space, adapting to horrors unknown, growing sharper, hungrier. Hours later, the skies above Earth were clear. Karth wreckage rained into oceans. The Nightborne hung in orbit, its blackened hull looming. A sentinel returned from myth. Reyes opened comms. "This is Admiral Reyes of the United Earth Defense Network. Nightborne, how the hell did you survive?" There was a pause. Then the reply, cold and resolute: "We were never lost. We were preparing." And every human, from soldier in the trenches to child in the ruins, felt it in their bones. Earth had not been saved by luck. It had been saved by the return of something far greater. A ship forged in humanity's darkest hour, waiting for the day it was needed again. The Nightborne was home. And now, so was humanity's vengeance. Would you like me to expand this into a longer multi-chapter story, with flashbacks to the crew's lost centuries and how the ship was transformed, or keep it as a short punchy one-shot in classic HFY style? Got it. Let's continue the story forward from where we left off. Here's the next part of Earth was doomed until humanity's lost ship reappeared. Chapter 2, The Ghost Crew. The docking bays of New Geneva trembled as the Nightborne descended. Even through reinforced glass, people swore they could feel its presence, not just the roar of its engines, but something heavier, older, as if the ship carried with it the weight of centuries. When the ramp extended, soldiers raised their rifles automatically. Because the crew that stepped out didn't look entirely human. They wore old Terran Navy uniforms, yes, though ragged, patched with alien materials, but their eyes glowed faintly. Their movements sharp and predatory. Their skin bore faint tracings of silver. lattices like circuitry under flesh. They were human, but altered. The one in front removed his helmet. "Captain Elias Ward," he said, voice steady, carrying the authority of a man who had commanded through hell. "Commanding officer of the Nightborne. Reporting for duty." Admiral Reyes stared. Ward should have been long dead, 2 centuries gone. Yet here he stood, looking perhaps 40 at most, his face scarred but alive. "You should be dust in a grave," Reyes muttered. Ward's lips curled into something between a smile and a grimace. "We should be," but the Void had other plans. Behind him, his crew spread in disciplined lines. Their eyes swept the bunker with unnerving precision, like predators sizing up prey and allies alike. Every gesture was efficient, devoid of hesitation. Reyes forced his voice steady. "What happened to you out there?" Ward's eyes darkened. "We found the edge of mapped space, and then we crossed it. The things beyond tore us apart, remade us. We learned their war, learned their weapons, learned how to kill what should not be killed. We came back when Earth needed us most." A silence fell over the chamber. Soldiers shifted uneasily, unsure whether to salute or aim their rifles. Reyes exhaled slowly. "Then I suppose Earth does need you. But I'll ask the question everyone's thinking. Are you still human?" Ward's crew exchanged glances, grim, silent, knowing. Finally, Ward answered, "Humanity is not flesh or blood. Humanity is endurance, and we endured." Above, the wreckage of the Karth still burned in orbit, but deep sensors whispered of something worse. The Karth weren't retreating. They were regrouping. Reinforcements were coming. The Nightborne hadn't returned to end the war. It had returned to lead humanity into the next one. "Do you want me to keep writing immediate battle escalation with the Karth returning, or slow it down and explore the mystery of what the crew became during their centuries lost?" "Perfect, let's push the story forward. Here's the next continuation of Earth was doomed until humanity's lost ship reappeared." Chapter 3, Shadows on the Horizon. The war room lights flickered as the holomap updated. Dozens of crimson signals blinked into existence at the edge of the Sol system. Then hundreds, then thousands. The Karth reinforcements had arrived. Each contact pulsed with energy readings dwarfing the earlier fleet. Planet crackers, swarm carriers, annihilation hives, the full weight of a species that had slaughtered empires. The bunker fell silent, every officer staring in horror. Earth was a candle before a storm. "God help us," one whispered. Reyes turned toward Captain Ward. "Tell me you have a plan." Ward's eyes narrowed, studying the holomap with cold precision. "This isn't a battle Earth can win head-on. Not yet, but the Karth have made a mistake." He tapped a point in the projection, their fleet's rear line. "They're overconfident. They think humanity's broken. They've exposed their supply vessels and comm relays. Take those out. The swarm loses coordination. The bigger the beast, the harder it falls when you cut the nerves." Reyes frowned. "That would mean striking into their formation. We don't have the ships." Ward's crew exchanged knowing glances. Then one of them, a woman with half her face marked by silver lattice, stepped forward. "You have us," she said. Her voice was metallic, layered, like two people speaking in unison. The Nightborne was not idle in exile. She carries weapons Earth has never dreamed of. On cue, the holomap shifted, displaying the Dreadnought's full arsenal. Planet-shear cannons, void torpedoes that bent space around their targets, swarms of drones like living shadows. Humanity's lost ship was no longer just a dreadnought. It was a weapon forged in a nightmare crucible. Reyes leaned in, voice hard. "If we commit you to this, you're not coming back." Ward allowed himself a thin smile. "Admiral, we didn't come back to live. We came back to finish the fight." Far above, the Nightborne powered its engines. The ship trembled as systems came online, alien energies bleeding into human designs. Across Earth, civilians looked up at the sky, watching the black silhouette rise like an avenging phantom. Children pointed, soldiers saluted, survivors whispered prayers. Because for the first time in days, there was hope. And when the Nightborne ignited its spinal cannon, preparing to dive into the Karth Armada alone, a single message broadcast across all human channels. Humanity does not kneel, not today, not ever. Would you like the next chapter to dive into the Nightborne's assault against the Karth Armada, a big space battle? HFY style. Or peel back the mystery of what the ship encountered beyond known space that gave it these impossible weapons? Alright, let's go full HFY space battle. Here's the next continuation of Earth was doomed until humanity's lost ship reappeared. Chapter 4, The Spear in the Dark. The Nightborne surged into the void like a predator unleashed. Its engines burned with a blue so deep it seemed to devour the stars themselves. The Karth noticed immediately. Thousands of ships shifted, their formations tightening, weapons pivoting. A tide of annihilation turned toward one single vessel. Contact in 60 seconds, Ward's helmsman reported, voice steady despite the swarm ahead. Ward stood at the center of the bridge, hands clasped behind his back. Load void torpedoes. Target their command relays. Aye, Captain. The first Karth volley hit, a storm of plasma and antimatter, enough to erase fleets. But the Nightborne did not fall. Her hull shimmered, bending reality itself. Shots that should have struck vanished into nothingness, swallowed whole by distortions that rippled across the blackened plating. Return fire, Ward ordered. The void torpedoes launched, vanishing into folds of space. A heartbeat later, explosions blossomed inside Karth cruisers, tearing them apart from within. The alien fleet recoiled in shock as their rear line buckled. Then the spinal cannon fired. A beam of impossible energy cut across kilometers, slicing through battleships like tissue. The blast left behind a wound in space itself, a scar that twisted light and dragged wreckage into its depths. The crew did not cheer. They moved like machines, efficient and ruthless. Every strike was calculated, every maneuver honed by centuries of survival beyond charted stars. The Karth responded with fury. Warforms swarmed. Chittering masses of bioships flooding forward, they latched onto the Nightborne's hull, clawing, tearing. Deploy the swarm, Ward said calmly. From hidden bays, the Nightborne unleashed her own brood. Drones poured out like shadows, razor-winged constructs of alien alloy and human design. They shredded through the attackers, dismembering living ships with surgical precision. On Earth, civilians watched the battle play out across intercepted feeds. They saw their lost ship carving a path through an armada that had crushed entire civilizations. They saw the impossible and believed. For the first time in history, the Karth faltered. But Ward knew the truth. This was not victory. This was only the opening strike. He leaned over the tactical map, eyes fixed on the burning swarm ahead. Bring us deeper, he ordered, right into the heart of them. If the Karth want humanity broken, let them choke on our defiance. The Nightborne plunged forward, one ship against a galaxy of monsters. And the galaxy blinked. Do you want me to make the next chapter the turning point where the Nightborne uncovers the true enemy behind the Karth? Or should we stay in the moment and ride along? Detailed battle sequence of the Dreadnought tearing its way through the fleet? Excellent, let's keep the tension high and dive deeper into the space battle. Here's the next part of Earth was doomed until humanity's lost ship reappeared. Chapter 5, Into the Swarm. The Karth Armada stretched before them like a living wall. Millions of organic hulls pulsed with alien light, tendrils weaving webs of energy between ships until the entire formation looked less like a fleet and more like a single organism. Shields are holding, but only just, the tactical officer reported. Hull integrity down 5% and climbing. Ward's voice cut through the bridge like a blade. They think they're fighting a ship. They're wrong. Arm the spindle array. The crew hesitated, just for a moment. The spindle was not a weapon meant for lesser threats. It was a relic of the Nightborne's exile, a terror torn from the void itself. Then the helmsman spoke, voice taut, spindle primed. The Nightborne's dorsal plating unfolded like a blooming flower. From its heart, a sphere of twisting, impossible geometry rose, spinning faster and faster until it looked less like matter and more like a hole gnawing through reality. Fire. The spindle lashed out. A thread of light thinner than a hair, but infinitely sharp, shot into the swarm. It passed through a dozen capital ships without slowing. At first nothing happened, then the line widened, unraveling them from the inside. The Karth vessels shrieked as their bodies split neatly in half, corpses drifting apart like dissected specimens. A corridor opened through the living wall. The Nightborne did not hesitate. It plunged forward, drones pouring from its flanks like a storm of blades. But the Karth adapted. They always did. Bioships fused together, morphing into titanic juggernauts. Whole squadrons reconfigured into swarm hives, spewing interceptors in the millions. And deeper still, the command nodes pulsed, massive brainships that directed the tide. "Captain," shouted the XO, "if we keep pressing, they'll surround us. We won't escape." Ward's gaze never wavered. "We didn't come to escape." Another volley slammed into them. The bridge shook, sparks raining from consoles. Crewmen staggered, blood dripping down their faces, but they never stopped. Status? Main cannon recharging. Spindle array cooling. Drone reserves down 20%. Ward's jaw clenched. Not enough. Not yet. Then a thought struck him, sharp and dangerous. Target their command nodes. Prepare the rift charge. The bridge fell silent. The rift charge was the Nightborne's last resort. An engine killer. The weapon that had cost them half their original crew to master. "Sir, if we deploy it this close..." Ward cut her off. "Then we either die fast, or they die first. Ready the charge." On Earth, millions of people stared at flickering screens, watching their lost ship dive into the very heart of the alien swarm. The Nightborne's engines screamed as power rerouted into the charge. Space itself began to tear around the dreadnought, its hull glowing with fire stolen from the abyss. And across the Karth fleet, for the first time in recorded history, the swarm hesitated. Should I make the next chapter the rift charge detonation, a massive turning point battle moment, or reveal the hidden hand controlling the Karth right as the weapon fires? Perfect, let's push into the climax of this battle. Here's the next continuation of Earth was doomed until humanity's lost ship reappeared. Chapter 6, The Rift Opens. The Nightborne shook as if the universe itself wanted to tear it apart. The rift charge pulsed in its launch cradle, a sphere of collapsing geometry, space folding inward, time bleeding at the edges. Warning klaxons howled across the bridge, systems overloaded, lights flickered, and the deck plates thrummed like a heartbeat about to burst. Rift charge at 87%, the weapons officer barked, voice strained over the cacophony. Containment failing, if we hold it any longer. Not yet, Ward snapped, his eyes locked on the holomap, watching the Karth swarm converge. Closer, we fire when their command nodes overlap. Outside, the swarm pressed in, bioships latched onto the Nightborne's hull, drilling with acid-tipped tendrils. Drones screamed through the void, carving them away in clouds of gore. Juggernaut vessels moved to intercept, vast shadows dwarfing the dreadnought. Every second bled into eternity. "Charge at 95%, came the cry. "We're tearing holes in the ship itself, Captain." Ward's gaze hardened. "Hold." The Karth command nodes shifted, 3 titanic brainships pulsing in unison, coordinating millions of vessels, the heart of the swarm. "Now," Ward whispered. Firing rift charge. The weapon released. A spear of impossible light erupted from the Nightborne's hull, then folded inward on itself. Reality twisted, screaming as the rift tore open, a wound in the universe that dragged everything into its gnashing core. The 3 Karth command nodes convulsed, their organic structures shredding as gravity itself betrayed them. Smaller ships were sucked in whole, crushed and elongated into ribbons of debris, energy beams curved like water down a drain. The swarm collapsed. For the first time, the Karth were leaderless, confused, writhing, tearing into each other without command. On Earth, billions erupted in cheers. Screens lit up as the impossible played out. A single human dreadnought, long thought lost, had shattered the unstoppable. But on the Nightborne's bridge, silence reigned. The rift still burned. Containment breach spreading, the XO shouted. "If it destabilizes..." Ward stared at the writhing tier, at the shadows moving inside it. Not wreckage, not debris, shapes, watching, waiting, things from beyond, stretching tendrils into real space. His blood ran cold. The rift hadn't just destroyed the Karth, it had opened the door. "Shut it down," Ward roared. "Shut it down now." The crew scrambled, hands flying across controls. Systems groaned, screaming under the strain. The rift collapsed inward with a soundless detonation, snuffing itself out, leaving only silence and drifting wreckage behind. The Karth armada was broken. Earth had survived. But Captain Ward's eyes lingered on the scar where the rift had opened, on the memory of those shadows, waiting in the dark. The Karth were never the true enemy. They were the hunters running from something worse. And now, it knew where Earth was. Do you want the next part to follow with Earth celebrating its survival, a false peace before the truth emerges, or immediately pivot into the crew revealing what they've been fighting all this time beyond the rim? Here we go, carrying the story into the aftermath. This is the next continuation of Earth was doomed until humanity's lost ship reappeared. Chapter 7, False Dawn. The wreckage of the Karth drifted in glittering ribbons across the void. For the first time in living memory, Earth's skies were clear. Cities that had been bracing for annihilation lit their streets with desperate joy. Soldiers who had fought with empty rifles dropped to their knees, laughing or weeping. Broadcasts across every surviving channel carried a single truth. Earth was alive. In New Geneva, Admiral Reyes addressed the weary assembly. His uniform was torn, his face hollowed by days without sleep, but his voice rang with pride. Humanity has stared into extinction and endured. We will rebuild. We will rise. Today, the Karth have learned a lesson written into the stars themselves. He raised a fist. We do not kneel. Not now. Not ever. The chamber erupted in cheers. Civilians watching across the world echoed it, their cries carrying into streets and ruins alike. For the first time in decades, humanity felt invincible. But aboard the Nightborne, no one celebrated. Ward stood at the viewport, watching the scar where the rift had briefly torn reality apart. His crew moved quietly. No laughter, no relief, only grim silence. The XO approached, her silver-marked skin glimmering under the dim light. They think the war is over. Ward didn't turn. They've won a battle, not a war. The Karth will be back, in greater numbers. And worse, he lowered his voice. The things beyond the rift saw us. The XO's eyes hardened. Then it begins. Ward finally turned, surveying his altered crew, survivors remade in exile, tempered in horrors Earth couldn't imagine. They weren't cheering because they knew the truth. Earth wasn't safe. Earth was now a beacon. And somewhere, in the infinite dark beyond the rim, something stirred, something patient, something hungry. Should I make the next chapter about the Nightborne crew revealing their past, what they fought during their 200 years away, or about Earth preparing for the next war, unaware that they are already marked? Alright, let's peel back the curtain. This next continuation of Earth was doomed until humanity's lost ship reappeared. Dives into what happened to the Nightborne and her crew in exile. Chapter 8, The Lost Centuries. The briefing room aboard the Nightborne was dark, lit only by the soft hum of alien machinery woven into human steel. Admiral Reyes sat stiffly at the table, surrounded by Ward and his crew. Every one of them bore that same faint silver lattice under their skin, reminders of what they had become. You owe me answers, Reyes said, voice low. 2 centuries gone. You come back with weapons we don't understand, bodies that aren't fully human anymore. What happened to you out there? Ward met his gaze for a long, heavy moment before speaking. When the Nightborne left Earth, we were meant to chart the edge of known space, a routine mission, but we pushed further, past the rim. His voice darkened. That was our mistake. The room fell silent as he continued. Beyond the rim, the laws of reality don't hold. Stars burn with colors no spectrum can name. Time bends. We lost days, then years, without knowing how. And then, he exhaled. We found them. The architects. One of the crew, an older woman whose eyes shimmered like molten metal, spoke next. Not a species. Not life as you know it. They were structures that thought, that hungered. Machines, organisms, ideas all at once. They consume realities, strip worlds to the bone. To them, we were less than insects. Reyes frowned. And you fought them? Ward's jaw tightened. No, we survived them. Barely. We scavenged their weapons, stole fragments of their technology. It changed us, reshaped our bodies, our ship. Every victory we won was paid in blood. His eyes clouded. Half our crew didn't survive. The ones who did, aren't the same. The XO's voice was cold, almost detached. The Karth you fear so much? They're refugees. They run from the architects. They destroy other species because they believe only annihilation buys them time. Reyes went pale. You're saying the Karth weren't the endgame, just another prey animal, running scared. Ward leaned forward, his voice a whisper but carrying like thunder. They were never the true threat. The architects are coming. The rift proved we're here, and when they arrive, the Karth will look like gnats compared to what follows. The Admiral swallowed hard, his throat dry. The cheering crowds of Earth felt a million miles away. For the first time since the war began, Reyes didn't feel like a commander. He felt like a man staring into an abyss too vast to fight. Do you want the next chapter to show Earth's leaders reacting to this revelation, politics, denial, panic, or follow the Nightborne crew privately preparing for the return of the architects, setting up HFY defiance against a cosmic threat? Here's the next continuation of Earth was doomed until humanity's lost ship reappeared, moving into Earth's political reaction. Chapter 9, The Council of Ashes. The United Earth Council convened in the shattered halls of Geneva Spire. Once a gleaming monument of glass and steel, now it stood half-burnt, walls patched with scavenged alloy, a reminder of how close humanity had come to extinction. Representatives from every surviving nation sat in tense silence as Admiral Reyes relayed the Nightborne's warning. When he finished, the chamber erupted. "This is madness," barked Chancellor Ibekwe of the African Union. "You expect us to believe in cosmic machines eating reality itself? Refugee monsters?" sneered Director Hallstrom of the Martian Syndicate. "The Karth are butchers, and you want me to pity them?" "They're not asking for pity," Reyes snapped. "They're asking us to prepare. You saw the rift. You saw the shadows." A voice cut through the shouting, cold, controlled. It was Minister Leung of the Pacific Alliance. "Let us assume Captain Ward is telling the truth. What are you proposing, Admiral? That we rebuild Earth under the command of a ghost ship? That we entrust humanity's survival to a crew that no longer looks, or thinks, entirely human?" All eyes turned to Ward, standing silently at the edge of the chamber. His crew flanked him, statuesque and unreadable. The silver in their skin shimmered faintly, alien and unsettling. Ward finally spoke, his voice low but carrying across the hall. "You don't have to trust us. You don't even have to like us. But understand this, Earth has already been marked. The architects know you exist now, and when they come, all your armies, all your politics, all your disbelief will mean nothing." The chamber went quiet. The words hung like a death sentence. Reyes rose, slamming a fist onto the table. "Damn it. Listen to him. We've been given time. Nothing more. If we waste it squabbling." But he was drowned out again. Arguments roared. Alliances fractured. Leaders shouting over one another. Half called for peace and rebuilding. Half demanded militarization. And some accused Ward himself of being a Trojan horse, bringing alien corruption to Earth. Ward didn't flinch. He had seen this before. Civilizations arguing while the sky burned. To his crew, he spoke softly, almost too quiet for the human ear. "They won't be ready." The XO leaned in, whispering back, her silver eyes reflecting the chaos. "Then we prepare without them." And in the shadows of the ruined spire, the Nightborne's crew began planning humanity's survival, with or without Earth's permission. Do you want the next chapter to follow the Nightborne crew secretly building a hidden defense, HFY defiance in the shadows? Or show Earth splitting into factions, some siding with Ward, others refusing to believe? Great, let's move forward with the tension between Earth's factions and the Nightborne. Here's the next continuation of Earth was doomed until humanity's lost ship reappeared. Chapter 10, Fractures. Weeks passed. Earth's surface still smoldered with ruin. But reconstruction began. Cities rose from rubble, people returned from shelters, and for a brief moment, humanity believed itself victorious. But victory bred division. In the burned-out husks of orbit, fleets of scavenged warships were hastily repaired and repainted under new banners. Earth had no single army anymore. The factions hardened. The Pacific Alliance and Martian Syndicate demanded sovereignty, arguing humanity should expand outward to colonize and fortify, leaving Earth behind. The African Union and the Pan-American Bloc insisted on uniting resources at home first. Smaller nations clung to independence, distrusting the larger powers entirely. And all of them looked uneasily at the Nightborne. In propaganda broadcasts, whispers spread, "They're not human anymore. They've been tainted. They brought something back with them." Admiral Reyes fought daily to hold the council together. But Ward knew it was slipping. He saw it in every meeting, fear growing sharper than reason. One night, Reyes visited the Nightborne alone. The docking bay was silent, the ship's blackened hull looming like a mountain of shadow. Ward was waiting. "They don't believe you," Reyes said bluntly. Ward studied him. "Do you?" Reyes hesitated, then nodded. "I saw the rift. I saw the shadows. But belief doesn't win wars. Unity does, and Earth has none." Ward's jaw tightened. "Then unity must be forced." Reyes recoiled. "Forced? You'd turn that ship on your own people?" Ward's eyes burned with something fierce, dangerous. "If Earth falls to fear and politics, it won't matter who rules. The architects won't care. They'll devour what's left of you. Sometimes survival requires ruthless clarity." Reyes shook his head. "You haven't lived on Earth in 200 years. These are not soldiers hardened in your exile, they're civilians, families, children." Ward's expression softened. "Just for a moment. I haven't forgotten. That's why I fight. That's why we endured." But his voice hardened again. "Understand this, Admiral, if Earth cannot unite, the Nightborn will stand alone, and when the architects come, we will decide who is worth saving." Reyes left in silence, his heart heavy with dread. For the first time, he wondered if the ship that had saved humanity might also be the one to break it. Should the next chapter dive into the Nightborn crew secretly building hidden defenses and recruiting loyalists, or show a faction of Earth openly moving against the Nightborn, sabotage, espionage, maybe even an assassination attempt? Alright, now the conflict turns sharper. Here's the next continuation of Earth was doomed until humanity's lost ship reappeared. Chapter 11, The Spark. It began with whispers. Supplies bound for the Nightborn vanished in transit. Dockworkers reported seeing men in syndicate uniforms inspecting cargo bays that later turned up empty. Then came the sabotage. Power relays failed mid-cycle. Docking clamps jammed. A coolant line ruptured in engineering. The crew adapted quickly, repairing damage with alien efficiency. But Ward knew the truth. These were no accidents. The factions were moving against them. One evening, Admiral Reyes stormed aboard, fury etched across his face. "Ward," he spat, slamming a datapad onto the table. "Martian Syndicate intelligence intercepted this. A directive from their High Council, neutralize the Nightborn. The ship is too dangerous to exist." Ward didn't look surprised. Then they've finally decided to act on their fear. Reyes leaned forward. "You don't understand. They aren't alone. The Pacific Alliance signed on this morning. They're pooling fleets for a security action. In less than a week, they'll move on you." The bridge crew, silent until now, exchanged cold glances. Their silver-threaded eyes betrayed no fear, only calculation. The XO spoke first. "We could destroy them before they gather. One strike from orbit." "No," Ward cut her off. "We don't fire on Earth. Not unless there's no other choice." Reyes slammed his fist down. "Damn it, Elias. If you hold back, they'll gut you in dry dock. And if you retaliate, you'll prove them right, prove you're no longer human." Ward's voice was ice. "We endured 2 centuries in the dark to come back to this." He rose, every word sharp as steel. "If Earth wants to burn us, let them try. We will not fall, not to aliens, not to our own." That night, as the Nightborn's crew patrolled the silent corridors, sensors picked up faint signatures crawling along the hull, boarding pods. The factions weren't waiting a week. They were already here. Do you want the next chapter to be the Nightborn repelling this infiltration attempt, close quarters combat, HFY style, or a sabotage success that cripples part of the ship, forcing Ward into a desperate countermove? Perfect, let's step right into the fight. Here's the next continuation of Earth was doomed until humanity's lost ship reappeared. Chapter 12, Fire in the Hull. The Nightborn's alarms howled through her blackened corridors. Multiple breaches along decks 7 through 12. The tactical officer shouted. "Boarding pods, Martian signature confirmed." Ward didn't hesitate. "Seal the decks. Deploy counterswarm." The corridors lit with cold, crimson strips as the ship obeyed. Bulkheads slammed shut, trapping half a dozen boarding parties before they could spread. Then the hatches in the walls peeled open, and the Nightborn's defense drones poured out. Blades sang through the air. Bullets sparked off walls. The Syndicate soldiers fought with disciplined precision, but they hadn't been prepared for what the Dreadnought had become. The drones weren't machines in the traditional sense. They were sleek, insectal constructs of human steel braided with alien tissue, moving like predators. They didn't fire, they hunted. Screams echoed as the corridors ran red. On Deck 9, one squad made it further than most. They pushed through drone fire, laying down suppressive rounds, until they reached a critical junction, the auxiliary reactor chamber. If they could overload it, half the ship would go dark. Their leader slapped a charge onto the bulkhead. Set for 30 seconds? The wall behind him rippled. Captain Ward stepped out of the shadow itself, his silver-threaded eyes gleaming in the dark. His voice was calm, almost gentle. 30 seconds is too long. Before the soldier could react, Ward moved. Not fast, impossibly fast. His hand blurred, snapping the rifle in two. His crew emerged behind him, silent, efficient, cutting down the rest in moments. The leader fell to his knees, staring up in terror. "You're not human." Ward caught him by the throat, lifting him effortlessly. His voice was a low growl. "No, I am what humanity became to survive." With a twist, it was over. By the time Admiral Reyes arrived, the assault was finished. Dozens of Syndicate corpses floated in sealed compartments, their pods torn apart. Not a single Nightborne crewman had fallen. Reyes looked around at the carnage, his stomach turning. "God help us, you slaughtered them." Ward's expression was unreadable. "They came to kill us," we answered. "This isn't defense anymore," Reyes said, voice shaking. "This is escalation. Earth will never forgive this." Ward finally turned to him, eyes cold and burning. "Then Earth must choose. Fear us, or follow us. There is no middle ground." And behind him, his crew, remade, unbroken, stood like statues of steel and flesh, their silence more terrifying than any threat. Would you like the next chapter to show Earth's factions declaring open war against the Nightborne, or pivot to the architects stirring beyond the rim, drawn by the rift's scar, forcing humanity into a choice between unity or extinction?